BlackRock, Michael Saylor, and even the $4 trillion Fidelity is all talking about the Bitcoin supply shock this week. Now, before we get into this new report that Fidelity released, and before we talk about how Bitcoin has rallied by over $12,000 in the past 48 hours, let's listen to what Michael Saylor believes might happen if his company MicroStrategy and BlackRock are able to accumulate 15% of the total Bitcoin supply. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but let's listen to what the billionaire Michael has to say himself.
If we were to ever get to 5% of the network's going to be at least $1 million a coin. If we were to go beyond it, it's going to 10 million a coin. So when we get to 7% of the network, if we do, and Bitcoin is $10 million a coin, and if BlackRock keeps up with us, that means 85% of the network, right? And you're going to be talking about $200 trillion. So you're going to have $170 trillion that will flow to the individuals. So they're not exactly getting crowded out, right? If anything, what you've got is the corporations are all engines turning the flywheel of the Bitcoin economy. Every single company, every Bitcoin treasury company that capitalizes on Bitcoin is like attaching a motor to the network. And every time that company buys $50 million worth of Bitcoin, they spin that drive shaft one turn. That's one day's natural supply. Right. And so the more companies that come on, whether it's BlackRock or whether it's Strategy or whether it's MetaPlanet or whether it's 21 or whether it's BSTR, or, or whether it's similar, whoever it might be, each one of them is firing up a motor. All of the motors are powering up the network. If you're an individual and you believe in Bitcoin, you buy the Bitcoin, you cold storage the Bitcoin, and you let all the companies power up the network.
So I've got another clip to play for you guys on that topic of BlackRock and Michael Saylor trying to buy 15% of the entire Bitcoin network. But while we're talking about this idea of supply suffocation, Fidelity published this report just a little bit over 2 weeks ago now. And their big headline, the big claim that they made in that report was essentially doubling down on what Michael just said in that clip. 8.3 million Bitcoin to go illiquid. Fidelity is predicting a massive Bitcoin supply crunch, and they believe that over 8 million coins will become illiquid. So let me try to zoom out and show you some of the great charts they have in this report. Again, there's a ton of good charts in this report. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was incredible. Now, what I want to do is I want to start breaking down the one that is predicting 8 million Bitcoin will become illiquid. That means it won't be traded on a daily basis. And that means that this type of holder, so to say, the Bitcoin held by an illiquid holder, they won't be selling the Bitcoin. They're long-term holders. They have no incentive to sell it. Now let's have a look at this chart right here. We can see that the number of Bitcoin becoming illiquid is going absolutely parabolic. Have a look at that for a chart. That's kind of insane when we zoom out. And again, that's a 10-year chart. That's not cherry picked. That thing is absolutely skyrocketing. And I think this is the, I'm going to call this the mirror image of one of my favorite charts. That is, of course, the one that we continue to talk about, the Bitcoin supply on exchanges. And have a look at how much this thing has dropped off a cliff in the past 6 months, especially the past month. Right now, we're down to 2.4 million Bitcoin on exchanges based on how CryptoQuant is measuring it. Again, I think this is fascinating to see this trend just continue doing what it's doing. And I think this is going to be one of the major catalysts for Bitcoin's next 4-year rally. I think we really are about to see something really special here. There's a reason why this is probably the first, news-based live stream I've done looking at the fundamentals and the price of Bitcoin in a week or two. because nothing was really interested in me. But now I think we're starting to knock on the door of all-time highs. This is when we need to be prepared for things to go parabolic. The reason why is because, again, you guys know I'm not a trader, and this is not a trading channel, but there's a lot of indicators all saying the same things. Prepare for volatility. The monthly Bollinger Bands have never been this compressed. All this means is that volatility is coming one way or the other. Could be up, could be down. You guys know where my bias is. I think we're going to be moving up. And I think that's mainly due to the trend that we're talking about today, the supply suffocation. We can see the top 100 Bitcoin treasury companies hold 1 million coins right now. And this is changing, and this is really beginning to accelerate. We can also see that Bitcoin's 90-day realized volatility just reached 9-year lows. The last time it was this low was at the end of 2016, just before that wild 2017 bull market rally where Bitcoin 20x'd in a matter of 9 months. And we saw this play out on the chart. Have a look at how volatile Bitcoin was in those last 9 months of the bull run in 2017. It went absolutely nuts. There was 6 corrections bigger than 28%. Let's have a look at that chart. That's absolutely insane when you think about it. Again, if Bitcoin 20x's today from 120 to 2 million, how many people do you think is going to get shaken out? I personally think a lot of people are going to get shaken out. Again, I always encourage you guys, prepare for the bull run ahead of time. The best way to prepare so that you don't make any wrong decisions is by getting a hardware wallet today, putting your Bitcoin on a hardware wallet, and just being able to sleep a little bit easier at night, okay? I'm a big fan of the Trezors. Trezors make great hardware wallets. They're going to give you 5% off any hardware wallet you want to buy. I've personally got the Trezor Safe 5, has a super convenient touch screen. I'm also a big fan of the ledgers. You can get $10 of free Bitcoin for any ledger you want to buy. Again, I'm a fan of Ledger and Trezor because both companies have been in the Bitcoin space since 2013. That's a 13-year track record. I think they're both great options for you guys to get your hands on a hardware wallet before the bull run comes. Because again, there's a lot of indicators saying that things are about to heat up here. Obviously, the price closing in on another all-time high right now is one of the most interesting metrics, so to say. But I also found this narrative by Ben Cohen that I think is really interesting. If you go back to each Bitcoin bull run, he's looking at 2013, 2017, 2021, and now 2025. So every 4 years, typically you see a little bit of a sell-off in August, and the sell-off that you see in August and September marks the absolute bottom before Bitcoin goes absolutely parabolic. I mean, I think you guys can see it pretty clearly. If we zoom out here to another chart that I want to show you, it looks as if we're kind of beginning to enter that parabolic phase, the parabolic phase of the bull run, where things all of a sudden become unpredictable. And again, this isn't just guessing or tea leaves drawing on a chart. What we're doing is just looking back throughout history. Every single time that we get into September, October, November, it's bullish. We need to be aware of Bitcoin's seasonality. We can see on average, Bitcoin puts in 23% returns in October. This is why we call it Uptober. We can see 46% is the average return in November and a modest 5% in December. This is why, again, it's very, very reasonable and plausible to see Bitcoin at $200,000 in less than 90 days. And again, I'm not the only one who thinks that. While we're talking about supply suffocation, let's listen to what Matt Hogan from Bitwise said this week on this topic.
Hogan, there are now more than 180 public companies that have added Bitcoin to their balance sheet, according to BitcoinTreasuries.net. That sounds like a lot.
It's a down payment. I think that number is going up. You know, some of these companies are those so-called DATs, digital asset treasuries, that just buy Bitcoin for their balance sheet. Mackenzie is right that that momentum is somewhat fading. But on the other side of the balance sheet, you have a broader set of companies that, just like individuals, want to have 5 or 10% Bitcoin. Companies like Figma, companies like Block. I still think that corporate number is going to double over the next year or so. The amount of Bitcoin on the balance sheets are going to go up. And I think there's an even bigger story in ETFs, where the flows, from my perspective, are set to accelerate strongly into Q4. So I am still feeling bullish about this market. I take this pullback as an opportunity and not a setback as we move into Q4.
So I hope you guys can see the theme here. Everybody's pretty bullish on Q4. Q4 is coming, the bull market is coming, and everybody's now becoming aware of the most important trend in Bitcoin. This is one of my favorite charts from Fidelity's most recent report. It's showing a number of Bitcoin held by short-term holders. So this is classified as liquid supply. Look at it just starting to drop off a cliff over the past 2 years, while at the same time, these coins are transferring to entities who aren't selling, which is why we're seeing a larger and a larger portion of the Bitcoin supply become illiquid. And this green line, it's increasing, and this orange line is decreasing. That's literally just spelling out what we talk about here on the channel nearly every day. Bitcoin is becoming incredibly more scarce. And again, to answer the original question of today's video, there could be a day where MicroStrategy and BlackRock combined might hold 15% of the supply. Before I play that video for you guys, let's have a look at a couple of more of the recent updates. Again, Bitcoin's twice the size of Visa. I saw that come out during the week. And then I also saw this really cool video looking at what's happening and what... Boy, that audio was loud. I hope I didn't blow your eardrums, guys. But this video is having a look at what a $50 DCA into Bitcoin would have given you in returns if you started in 2020. You can see with comparing Bitcoin and gold and stocks. I think this is really interesting. But what's fascinating is we can see pretty clearly, if you can hold Bitcoin for an extended time frame, it outperforms absolutely everything. There is no ifs or buts or questions about it. I think we can see it pretty clearly. The Bitcoin DCA value is crushing gold. We can see 63,000 versus 28,000 in gold, and that would have been your returns if you invested $15,000 over the past 4 years. And again, this is happening. A lot of people, there's gold fever right now in the market. Have a look at this. This is the amount of gold being bought by China. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. I think the world is now beginning to see a little bit of gold fever, and we all know what happens. Bitcoin typically follows gold. It's on a 90-day lag, and I think we're going to see some really interesting things accelerate here. I think we're going to see Bitcoin catch up to gold in a pretty big way, and everything's kind of aligning for a pretty magical Q4 to come. I think Q4 is going to be incredibly bullish, and I don't think it's slowing down from here. I think we're just kind of on the launch pad right now, so to say, which is why I think when you zoom out, we kept encouraging everybody, stop freaking out over the most recent dip of Bitcoin. You can see if I hit refresh on this little chart, what a difference 4 days makes. Everybody was max bearish at $108,000 a coin. But when you kind of zoom out and put things into perspective, it's pretty clear what's happening here. We're seeing a supply suffocation. And I think we're about to see the parabolic phase in the Bitcoin bull run that I think is going to catch most people off guard. I don't think anyone's ready. To Gregory's point, couldn't agree more. I don't trust BlackRock. I don't even trust MicroStrategy. I don't trust anyone. This is why I personally am a maximalist in Bitcoin self-custody. I put my Bitcoin in self-custody. I don't do anything else. It's as simple as that. Supply squeeze is coming. I'm like loving my man. In cold storage, we trust. Yeah, I mean, when things really get cranking here, when the bull run really starts, I think we're going to see some really interesting things happen. I don't think anyone's prepared for what's going to happen. Everybody's talking about it now, which is what makes me think it's going to get even more bullish than most people think. Again, What do markets do? They punish the consensus view. The consensus view right now is Bitcoin's going to rocket to 150 or 200 pretty quickly. So what's the unpopular view? Bitcoin's already topped, or Bitcoin goes to 500. Again, you guys know where I stand on this one. I think Bitcoin's going to 500 much quicker than most people think, which is, again, why I always encourage you guys, be prepared for the bull run in any way, shape, form possible. Another tool I think you need in your Bitcoin bull run toolkit is a place where you can borrow against your Bitcoin safely and responsibly. This is why I like peer-to-peer marketplaces. I think Firefish is the best place for you guys to borrow against your Bitcoin. They enable you to get instant loans. You can get 2-year loans over on Firefish. And again, like I said, they're a marketplace, meaning they don't take custody of your Bitcoin. All they're doing is they're connecting you with an individual who's seeking yield by lending out stable coins on the platform. Okay, I think Firefish is great because, again, multi-signature vaults, they don't take custody of your Bitcoin. There's nothing shady going on in the background, which is why I've personally taken a couple of loans on Firefish, and I'm going to be taking a lot more loans on Firefish when the bull run really kicks into things and I try to buy a home without selling any of my Bitcoin. So check out Firefish. I believe they're going to give you a 30% discount on your fees if you use a promo code Luke. Again, 30%. We're not talking about 0.01% savings in fees, 30%. That's huge. That's big. And again, I think Robert here in the chat touches on something really important. When currencies collapse, you're going to see all sorts of things like bail-ins and confiscations and all sorts of really Orwellian things happen. We keep talking about that on the channel a lot. But another exponential trend I wanted to touch on today was the rise of Bitcoin knots. This is a different Bitcoin node client that, as we can see, is growing in popularity in let's just call it a parabolic fashion. So again, in today's theme of the video of parabolas incoming, I saw that chart and I thought that was pretty insane. I had to show you guys. But again, what I think is the signal here is nobody knows where the price of Bitcoin is going, but the stars seem to be aligning here for an incredibly bullish Q4. We've been saying it for months now. We've been telling you the bull run hasn't even started. We're still kind of chopping around sideways at $120,000 a coin. And I just think the spring is coiling. I think the next leg of the bull run is going to absolutely melt faces much quicker than most people think. And I think the scrambling that we're seeing from the bureaucrats is kind of more and more confirmation that they know they are about to lose control of the financial system in a pretty big way. This is why we're seeing the UK introduce digital IDs. They're introducing savings caps. They're passing withdrawal limits on your bank accounts. And again, I think that what's happened in the UK and Europe has to be something we pay attention to. I did another live stream on that topic yesterday. Highly encourage you guys to check it out if you haven't seen that already, because they literally froze $7 billion held by a Chinese national who was squatting on 61,000 Bitcoin. So that means the UK government now holds about 120,000 Bitcoin. Let's not forget, they were also recently talking about selling there's 60,000 Bitcoin stash that they held in July, just a few months ago now. So again, I think there could be some really interesting geopolitical ramifications for that seizure that the UK publicized earlier in the week and made official. And now we're seeing China and the UK scramble for control over that $7 billion. China's trying to say, but look, that scam happened in China. They scammed 130,000 Chinese people. She only escaped the country on a fake passport. We should be entitled to that 60,000 Bitcoin. But the UK is saying, no, 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 no. That's our Bitcoin now. So I think there's some interesting developments on that front. Again, if you guys missed that live stream I did yesterday, I'm going to put a link to that one somewhere up over there and in the description for those who missed it. And with all that said, in typical Luke fashion, I am 3 minutes late to a massage. So I'm going to get on out of here. I'm going to wish you all a happy Thursday night, and I'll see you all in the next live stream.